Ok, et là, voir, et c'est bon, j'apprends tout le monde.
Ben, on commence alors. C'est déjà 15. Tu m'acceptes? T'as enlevé ton micro.
Et à Chloé,
Tu peux enlever ton micro. Chloé, tu peux te déconnecter, s'il te plaît.
Ah, c'est bon.
Recording in progress.
C'est bon.
All right. Who is missing? Yes, Sam.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Then we can start now.
Lola, we can't see you. You probably have your camera off.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I will share my screen.
I got a note saying this meeting was being live streamed. Was that your intention?
Sorry?
The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube.
Yes, it's live streamed and recorded for analysis purpose. And we have that's the problem, because we have two of our teams who should be connected with us, but they weren't able. So we're gonna diffuse it on YouTube. But don't worry, no one will see it other than us.
Making my YouTube debut here.
Okay, so we're gonna just start now. Clémence will share with you her screen.
Do you want me to do it, Clémence?
Yeah, I'm also trying to do it. Yeah, can you do it, Sam, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Tu prends des notes? C'est l'écran de Sam.
Okay, so let's get started. As I said, we will be working on women and performance. That's why you're all here. And I've talked. I mean, there's not really rules. Don't worry about them. It's important that you can be reactive. You listen to each other. There's no good and bad answers. And the point is, we don't have anything really defined to propose you. We have basically starting points of ideas, and we'd love to hear you about how you react and how does it make sense in your life. And we'll be working in 1 hour and 40 minutes together and trying to define new practices and for women and performance. So the first should be here. First question that we have for you is basically how does performance sound? How do you define it? How do you evaluate performance in general in your life, not necessarily in sport, but really in general? Who wants to give it a thought?
I can go. So I mean, in sport, it's far easier to define because I'm a scientist in my real life, and so I'm extraordinarily data driven. I have all of the body monitors. I have my heart rate monitor. I have my watch. I have my power meters. I have all these things that provide a constant input of data for me to evaluate, to compare. I've been recording data from myself for over a decade now, and so it's really easy to see, you know, when I'm doing well or doing less well, you know, in with respect to my performance goals. You know, as just a person, as a human, performance, you know, can be, it's pretty broad. And I mean, within the last couple of years and with the pandemic and everything, being, you know, somewhat healthy mentally, mental health is kind of been the critical focus, making sure that, you know, I'm not feeling totally pulled in a bazillion directions and, you know, not feeling completely overwhelmed and just with a feeling of existential despair all the time. So, I mean, for me, it's just a constant check-in with my body and my mind to make sure that, you know, I'm getting what I need in terms of sleep, in terms of therapy, in terms of exercise, in terms of, you know, family and friends and all of that. I mean, that's just a constant assessment of how I'm feeling and how I'm doing. But sport is far easier. I wish I had mental health data that I could evaluate.
It's Danielle, it sounds very, of course, data, very rational. I mean, for sport, I mean, is it always that rational, that scientific?
For my sport or just for my life?
For your life. I mean, I've heard that in terms of mental health, it's not always the case, but.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've been better able to take a more compassionate and empathetic approach to myself. And so I do feel I can be less rational. You know, I can take a more subjective view rather than, you know, a more outside view. And like, obviously, when you add up these experiences together, you're not doing well. And I feel like I've been able to be a little bit more insightful as I know myself, as I've gone through therapy and, you know, being able to assess a lot more of that kind of intangible feeling. And that also relates to the performance side of things like sport and whatnot. You know, how I'm feeling, I think really does play a big part in how I train. I try to give myself a lot of compassion, you know, in terms of, you know, if you're just not feeling up to it, I don't get on the treadmill, you know, if that's just not what I'm feeling, it's not going to benefit me in the way that I need in that moment. It's going to be better to maybe do a yoga session or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Danielle said about how do you evaluate your performance just sort of more generally in life. It's really about how do you feel. Do you feel like you're accomplishing, you know, the objectives that you set out for yourself, either in work, in life, in sport, because there are no metrics. It really, you have to do it based on feel. And I totally agree with Danielle, like as I've gotten to know myself better, the compassion that she was talking about, sort of like, you know, I used to think of it as like making excuses, but I think Danielle had it exactly right, where, you know, some days it's just like, it's just not worth it. Like, you know, you gotta respond to your body and respect your body and understand that the limitations and pushing yourself, especially as you age, you can't just push yourself all the time like I could in my teens and 20s. Like it doesn't work the same. And interestingly, I diverge dramatically from Danielle on like in the sport piece, that I have gone so far away from data. And the last thing I want to do is track my data and see how I'm underperforming as to last year. I mean, I have all the tools and I look at them like in the moment just to check in, but I don't track, I don't measure, I'm not on Strava, things like that, because like I want to enjoy the sport for the sake of the enjoyment, and over analyzing data just sometimes makes me feel bad, and I don't need that.
I gotta say that I am kind of different from both. In life, what I do is I keep a journal, And I write every day. I have these prompts that I learned a couple years ago about what you felt today, how did that make you feel? And it's like 4 questions that I try to answer on a daily basis, very short things. And I don't really evaluate the performance. I mean, I guess I do evaluate it as I write down my journal. But then what's actually really interesting is going back a couple years from now every once in a while and see how I was doing versus how I'm doing now, and then read your words. And it's always crazy to be like, oh, I remember this day, I wrote these words. So in life, I really take that journal approach. And in sports, I actually am a huge fan of Strava. I love visuals and graphs, and I've been working out since I was 5 years old because my mom didn't know what to do with my hyperactivity. So she signed me up for swimming, and then I started competing and all that. So keeping like a graph of my times and all that, like the visual aspect of seeing whether the graph goes up or down or bounces some, that's how I do it. I'm a designer by profession, and there's a type of graph that I actually just forgot the name, but it analyzes data both vertical and horizontal. And I made what I call my visual resume, where I include like my sleeping hours throughout the past decade of my life and my work habits throughout the past decade of my life and my sports habits. So it's hours by years. And yeah, the visual aspect of tracking performance, it's like the main thing for me. But thankfully, apps like Strava already exist out there, so I love using them.
Anna, I have a question. Why do you split that much via sport with your visual data, let's say, and the rest of your life, which sounds to be very based on your feelings and emotions?
I guess because this is super weird, but until I was like 20 years old, I didn't realize that people don't work out. I thought that working out was just like having breakfast and like a thing that everyone did. And it was until late college that I was like, yeah, I would always say like, no, because I have training, no, because I have training. And my friends would be like, why are you always training? And I'm like, aren't you? Like, don't you do a sport? And so for me, it was a very mechanical thing to do sports. And because I don't have to gather the emotional desire or anything, it's just something that I have to do, like having breakfast, having an app that does everything like that as mechanically, and I get this visual to evaluate it. It's really appealing. But in life, it's not as mechanical because there's emotions and sentiments involved. So there's apps that do, like, you can try to input data like I'm feeling happy or sad or angry or whatever, but it doesn't track the subtle details of emotional life in the way that my own words. Maybe I wrote something in my journal, I was super sad, and some tear came dropping on the paper, and then I see it 2 years later and I'm like, oh, I remember that awful day. So I think that's it, that sports is more mechanical for me than life.
Okay. Okay. How much comfortable are you with the word performance for the three of you?
I mean, it's a word. I mean, it's not a word that I generally use for myself. It's interesting because I watched the Ironman World Championships this weekend, and that word was used so much. You know, it was every athlete's performance. It was, you know, there's a good performance or bad performance or whatever. And, you know, it's interesting because it becomes second nature when you're talking about these really, you know, high level performance athletes. And, you know, I don't use that word with regards to myself. It's not good or bad. It's just, that's not a word that I see as relevant to me.
So what do you use instead of performance for yourself?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of times I guess I'm just more specific, I suppose. I mean, if I'm talking about, you know, if I'm trying to work on something on the bike, you know, it's like I talk about my power, or I talk about, you know, time in the saddle or something like that, like more specific rather than kind of like an all-encompassing term. And for my life, yeah, I mean, I guess for my life, it's just, it comes down to so much how I feel. And, you know, and that's certainly not performance. I hope not anyways.
And performance is a very relative term, right? It's performance as compared to what? Like other mothers, other employees, other athletes, performance as compared to yourself. So there's this sort of like evaluation connotation for a word like performance that I sort of shy away from, because again, I'm just going back to like, I want to feel good about what I'm doing, and like comparing myself to other people is not often a recipe for feeling good. So, you know, how to evaluate yourself as a woman? Like, I don't think you even need the word performance. Like, how are you doing as a person, as a mother, as an athlete, as an employee? Like, I think performance just implies a level of comparison that isn't necessary.
And then how do you appraise results, for example, if it's not compared with others?
Right. Well, that's hard.
No. I mean,
you compare with yourself. I don't know.
Yes.
Like, you know, I think you do have to sort of benchmark yourself against sort of what else is happening in the world, but you need to do it, back to Danielle's point about compassion. Like, you need to do it in a compassionate way, and realizing that like everybody's circumstances are unique, everybody's innate talents are unique, and so yeah, just try to soften the comparison a little bit.
Okay. What about, I mean, you mentioned a lot, let's say your feelings towards objectives and things like that. Are they enough? Do you need more?
Do I need more feelings? No, I got a surplus of feelings.
Sure. But no, I mean, when you say that you still need somehow to be able to benchmark yourself with others,
Yeah.
what about just having your feelings to appraise what you did, if you're happy about it or not? Or
Yeah, that should be the goal, like that you should be able to just, you know, check in with yourself. But I think just sort of societal realities don't like you would have to be a very evolved individual to be able to do that and not judge yourself in relation to how others are doing.
okay.
And I think also, I'm going to say also as like an athlete and someone, you know, in like a type A personality type of person, like I can't not compare myself to others. Like that's innate for me.
Okay.
And so unlearning part of that has also been part of my personal journey.
Okay. Clear.
And sorry, I'm just having a question for both of you, Danielle and Lexi. Did you have this mindset since forever, or you just change it through time? Because at first, Danielle said that while you're getting older, you're getting more and more compassion to yourself and listening to yourself more and more. So did you have this mindset about listening to your feelings, not comparing to each other since you started practicing, or just a mindset that changed with time?
Mine is a much more recent development.
I can definitely agree with that. I mean, I feel like as a woman in American society, you know, I and Lexi too, I'm sure, like, you know, we've been surrounded by a lot of judgment our entire lives about our bodies, about where we belong in society, where we belong in sports, you know, what an athlete is supposed to look like, what a woman's supposed to look like, all these things. And yeah, it's kind of been, now that I'm old enough, I have the time, I have the money, I have a little bit of more emotional intelligence to kind of take a step back from all of that and say, I'm not satisfied with that. I'm not satisfied with your view of me as an athlete. And, you know, I'm not, you know, a skinny lady. And so being a triathlete and claiming that word has been a journey for me, you know, not saying like I do triathlons. It's like, I am a triathlete. That is a very distinct difference. And that owning that and claiming that has been a journey. And, you know, I feel pretty proud of being able to say that, not that it's still a little uncomfortable, but the symbolism of that and claiming it speaks to a lot of other things that I've had to work on as, you know, an almost 40-year-old woman in this wild world that we live in right now. And, you know, this world of social media and, you know, for better or for worse, like we're in it every day. You know, I have Instagram, I have Strava. So it's like these reflections of other people are constantly, you know, showing themselves to me. And I have to take a very conscious choice to either take it in or say, I'm good. Like I'm doing my own life here. Thanks.
And for me, I think there's a humility aspect to it as I've aged too. Like I'm not 20 anymore. Like I ran last night and then I went to spin class this morning and I was dying in spin class this morning. And like, you know, even 10 years ago, I don't think I would have had that experience. I could just like muscle through it. And so I think a lot of it comes from just sort of the humility of aging. And you know, I've always been very proud of what my body's been able to do. And so coming to terms with that and sort of confronting my own mortality in a way and sort of adapting, like, you know, just sort of adapting how I approach sport to continue to get the enjoyment out of it, but also recognizing that like my body's different now than even it was 5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Anna, what about you? When it comes to performance, are you at ease? You know, do you like that word? Does it reflect your relationship with your body, with sport in general, or with your life, or not at all?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I'm finding this exercise pretty interesting because again, I not disagree, but I am very different from Danielle and Lexi in the sense that I do use the word performance on me quite often, and I look at evaluation as I mean like as a healthy thing because when there's a difference that performance when it comes to sport can be analyzed on a daily basis or an hourly basis, or I can just get the data straight from Strava at the moment that it happens. And then more of like a energy level or motivational state of life, which could be other ways of calling performance in life. That takes a little bit longer. But what has been super interesting to me is that if I take the last decade of my life of data and compare it to my journal entries, they actually correlate very closely. And when you look at the journal thing, if you do it weekly, like a retrospective weekly, you probably won't tell that it was so correlated to your sports performance. But if you take it on a longer time frame, you can definitely tell, oh, I was really sad here. I started not performing well, and then I was super happy here and I started outperforming or beating my Strava record or making the same laps if it's on the swimming pool on 13 seconds less and so on. So I do look at the only thing about this question that was funny is as a woman, because I never go through life and thinking, oh, I am a woman, so let me evaluate my woman S. It's like I evaluate my performance and that's it. I don't think about it as a woman. But yeah, I hope that it doesn't have to do with self-compassion. It maybe has to do more with my energy levels are high still. And so I don't have to be compassionate on not having energy levels. But I've realized when I'm really sad or something bad happened, that of course my sports life is gonna have a repercussion on that. And then I just, I acknowledge it and move on. But I'm sure that might evolve with time. So far, I haven't felt it.
Okay, and you get to benchmark only with yourself, basically. That's right.
In life, yeah, pretty much. But no, in sports performance, I do love the comparison, and I'm like, Strava gives you all of these awards of you bet the person who has done this ride the most times for 5 seconds, and then somebody beats your record, and I'm like, I want it back, so you go and try to do it harder.
Okay.
It's just like a game for me. It's like fun.
Yeah. Just to let you know that Amber just joined us. We can't see you, Amber, and we can't hear you either. I don't know if you're with us.
Yeah, I was just on mute. Hi, sorry. I was trying to get in and I couldn't, and I was having internet issues at first.
Okay, no problem. We just started. We mentioned all of the rules, but I think you already know about the rules. And we started with a question about performance, but you can still be on track with us.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
I mean, you'll see that we've divided the topics in different entry points. One is about, I mean, I know that it was some years ago, but how do you get to discover, your sport practice, basically? And we would love to, to investigate that and probably to show you some new ways to get started, some new ways to get to discover that. Because when we spent some time with some women, we realized that depending on their story, it was more or less difficult to allow yourself, to feel legitimate to be an athlete, to start performing, if it's the right word, or we can change it to anything. But there were potentially some obstacles. Okay, so if you had any comment about your own stories about it, we can you can share it with us. Otherwise, we have thought about some maybe some new ways to get started that we'd love you to get reactions to. So the first one is the idea of to have inspiring models. It's women like me. I mean, you more than me, but that things happen in their life. They discovered something, they had an issue, they were pregnant, they got injured, they joined a group or whatever. But we think that by having people I can refer to, having models I can refer to, not great athletes or whatever, women like me, but being introduced to those women, being able to see what they went through, what they managed to do, so that I can refer to them. Think about school, think about when you're young, think about things like that. How do you get started? Do you think that having models like that would be interesting or not? I mean, how would you turn it into something more interesting for you?
Yeah, I think that seeing other people doing the same thing is definitely motivating. Like I grew up in a small town where there wasn't any like athletes older than me, and all of the coaches at my school, like track and basketball, were men. So I didn't get into sports until I was just a few years ago, actually. And I stumbled into sports because of I lost weight and I was just trying to figure out something to do. But yeah, I think that having women role models is really important. In my sport, we've actually started like a women's group. Like I do obstacle course racing, and we started Elevate Women's OCR to try to get more women into the sport. And that seems to help when they can see other people who have went along the same road as them and realize that they can go from doing it for fun to being competitive. And a lot of people seem to be looking for that. They're always reaching out, wanting to talk to the elite women to get more insight.
Okay.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. For me, so my main sport is triathlon. And it's kind of interesting because my dad did triathlons all growing up. And so I was always there as kind of a support person for him, but I never saw myself as doing that. But then when I was in my, I guess, mid-20s, I moved to so I'm from Alaska, and I mean, Alaska just has insane sports people at every level, every age. I mean, it's just wild. No matter what sport you're interested in, you'll find just elite, incredible people. So I moved to a new city in Alaska, and there's a triathlon, the Gold Nugget Triathlon, which is the longest running all women's triathlon in North America. And a couple of my friends that I knew were doing it. And I was kind of like, well, I don't want to be left behind. And this seems really fun. And I want to do it. So I went and took adult swim lessons and taught myself how to swim in a organized fashion. I mean, I was already a biker, so that wasn't a huge deal. And then I basically had to convince myself that I could run, that I was a runner. And nothing was fast, nothing was pretty, but I got out there with some of the most incredible, inspiring women. I mean, from elite, just incredible women to, every body, every age. We had tri-generational women teams. We had from daughters to grandmothers on the same team. And it was just being out there and just being surrounded by all of this love and support. And didn't matter how fast you were going, everyone would come by and say, like, you're doing awesome. You're doing great. Keep going. And that blew my mind. I could not believe that this community existed out there. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter what you were doing. And after that, I was hooked. And I've done, half Ironman. I've done every length Ironman or triathlon except for a full. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but it just being part of something and being, having this tangible goal, but that started from this place of just support and love and a celebration of, like what Lexi was saying, like just the celebration of what your body can do if you have a goal. I mean, it was everything. And I mean, that came to me way later than I wish this had come to me when I was a freaking teenager, and I could have used that as a way to, have a more buoyant teenage experience. But yeah, it was everything. Like all women's triathlon. It was incredible. I'm an evangelist for all women's triathlon for sure.
We can see that, we can hear it.
So it's funny. I had a similar experience to Anna growing up. Like I just did sports because I grew up in Maine, like opposite side of the country. And like, that's just what you did because there wasn't a whole lot else to do. I had two brothers, like we did organized sports. Like I played soccer, I played ice hockey, basketball, like pretty much every sport that was available. I did it. And so it didn't really, I never really considered myself an athlete until I got to college. And then I was very much, I was an athlete, that was my thing in college. And it's funny, I'm actually like trying to hold on to that moniker. Like, I don't really feel like I'm justified in that, like relative to where I was in my 20s, but I guess relative to most of my friends, like I'm definitely an athlete. and it still sort of very much defines like how I see myself. But it's similar, and to my sort of athletic progression, like, you know, when I was young, high school, college, like I was doing the sports that my school offered me. And then after I had you know, there are tons of organized sports for kids, much harder to find organized sports for adults, especially women. And I think, you know, Amber's point and Danielle's point about having role models or opportunities where, like, I would love to get into OCR. Like, I did the triathlon thing. Like, I got into triathlons because I was in law school. I was going to the gym. One of my favorite spin instructors was like, "Hey, I'm starting this all women's triathlon group. It's going to be first time triathlons. Like, you know, let's do this together." And it was awesome. And I was like, I know how to bike. Like, I don't really know how to swim, but I can run. And it was great. It was such a great experience to sort of learn how to do it together. And then, like, I ended up dropping the running and just focused on biking for a while. But like, I need a new challenge now. And I would love to, I want to get into mountain biking. I would love to try OCR, like, but I don't know how to do it. Like, and so it would be really great to, you know, find an OCR club or something like that to sort of, you know, figure out how to get started and just to like be guided a little bit on like, this is how it works. And these are the things that you need to like master. And it's frustrating too, because I really want to get into mountain biking, but I only know guys who mountain bike, and I don't really want to like do this type of discovery with guys. Like, I want to do it with some women, like-minded women, and it's hard to find.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I think on that, I 100% resonate with what Lexi just said. All my life, I've done swimming because it's just the thing that I was told to do. And then biking was a relatively easy sport, road bike. But I think that both one of the reasons why I don't try other sports and why people don't try any sports at all, people who don't usually do sports, is that getting into a sport from zero to hero, it's really scary. Say, I really want to go into mountain biking too, but it's usually just my male friends who do that, and they are crazy, and I would probably die if I tried. That's what happened to me skiing. I went with a bunch of guys. They were like black diamond doing tricks and stuff, and I've never done even a green lane, which is the easiest one. And yeah, I actually dislocated my knee by trying to keep up with them. So I resonate with Lexi. It also, of course, depends on where geographically you are. I've struggled. I live in New York. I don't know about the other ones, but New York is particularly tricky because a lot of people, I would say most people, do some sort of workout, but they do it solo. So having a group of like-minded people to take on that adventures, especially not just like-minded people, but people who are on a next level performance on whatever sport than you, that want to, you know, take on an apprentice or something like that. That doesn't happen here in the city.
Okay, just where do you think those you know, encounters, those you know, meeting with those models, how, you know, where do you see it happening?
Within these 3 models that you have here?
For example, but any models. Do you picture it being in a store, being online, being, you know, where would you like it to happen?
Gotcha. I honestly, I struggle with new apps because you, like, opening Strava was a big step from Facebook, and Facebook from something else, and like something that exists on a platform that's already known is ideal. On Facebook, I'm on a couple of biking groups. That's actually where Noah found me. And that's what we try to do. Another place where I go for group biking is to REI store, which is like a famous sports store, and they have groups of different sports for people who want to sign up at different levels. But yeah, it would be either at a physical place where they are already selling something that makes me want to go to that place. I usually go for biking gear or whatever, so it makes sense. It's not an additional step on my routine, or on a platform that already exists, like Strava or Facebook.
Okay. If you have any other, for talking about the others, if you have any other ideas, or if it doesn't work for you, please speak out. Since we get to know you a bit better, I'm going to go faster to make sure that you get to react to everything. But don't hesitate to jump in if you wanted to say something.
I would just add to that, I would need in person. Like, I couldn't do this through an app. Like, I couldn't start something new like mountain biking through an app. I mean, like, maybe if it's something like triathlon, which I'm already sort of into, like an online group, might be okay, but I need the in-person stuff. I mean, like,
Okay.
Sport is so physical that like you need to have the people like next to you showing up at the same place, doing the same physical activity. Just, I do, sorry, I need that.
Okay.
Like Anna was saying, she wanted people like to, I guess, meet where she was. In the Elevate Women's OCR group we started originally, they used the app Mighty Networks to try to get people to connect, but that was an additional app people had to download, and they realized there wasn't a lot of interaction on there. People were still going to Instagram and Facebook to interact. So they actually recently moved the group from Mighty Networks app to Facebook group. And it's seeming to be more productive because, like Anna said, adding an additional step is something that people don't seem to want to do. And like for me, I like Lexi was saying, she wanted to do things in person. But like for me, I see on Instagram with obstacle course racing, a lot of women come from other sports. There are women that do skimo, mountain biking, road biking. And so I met them through OCR perhaps, but then I see them doing other sports on Instagram and I'm like, oh, that would be fun. But I have that potential in-person connection. So for me, like social media gets it started, but when I get the opportunity to meet those people in person and actually talk about it, like I would never probably go out on a mountain bike on my own. I even like a road bike, I started biking with my running coach initially. So yeah, I think the part about meeting people where they already are is really important because people don't like to be inconvenienced, even if they do want to try new things. Yeah, so I agree with both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. I mean, I was talking to Lexi in the chat about this women's mountain bike clinic that I took, and I found it through some like badass mountain bike ladies that I follow on Instagram, and then this clinic came up, and I saw all the cool stuff that they were doing in the virtual space, and then the coach has clinics all over the US, and so I signed up for a mountain bike clinic in Sedona, which is just south of me, and was able to all of a sudden, take this like virtual interest that I had and make it real, and all of a sudden connect with an incredible collection of like-minded women and learn how to mountain bike. And it was essentially, meeting me where I was, which was so incredible. I spend time on Instagram, saw this, and then literally drive 40 minutes away and hang out with just these like badass mountain bike ladies. And it was so fantastic. And when I was, a couple years ago, it got shut down now, but there was this women's triathlon group that I was a part of on Facebook. And it was like probably one of the biggest women's triathlons groups in that space. And it was also an incredible way for people to network and people to share gear and learn about races and all of that. And so having that virtual space that could also become, people found training partners and all this stuff, and that was really, really cool. Just a bunch of strangers hanging out, in service of a thing that we all enjoy. And, then it translates into this real thing, which is awesome. So yeah, social media, unfortunately, for better or for worse, it's, it's the gateway drug.
Okay. Another way to get started to involve people in sports could be to help them project on several steps. Help them project that, yes, when you discover something, you probably need to expect those kind of things. You won't become an athlete like that, but this is what you should expect. Then this is usually what people experience, and then you can keep going. But showing that it's not something that happens from right away until tomorrow. It takes times, and most of the time it takes those steps. So the idea here is, if you were exposed with that journey, with those steps, would it help to say, and to feel like somehow joining and stepping in and say, yeah, okay, I'd love to try.
So are you just asking if people give us a heads up that it might be challenging, would we be more willing to try if we know what to expect?
Exactly.
I think so. I feel like when I started OCR, I joined a gym of other people who had done a race before, and I had like about 8 weeks to get ready. And it was terrifying. The things that they were telling me kind of made me not want to do it. But then when it came, I didn't feel so overwhelmed. And I think that's what people seek all the time. Like in the Facebook groups, they'll be like, I'm going to do my first obstacle course race. What should I wear? What should I expect? How do I need to train? And people are always really seeking that advice. And then, and like for me, I went from like the amateur level to the more like mediocre, and now I'm racing at the elite level. And I was only willing to move up because I had other elite friends who I was able to see what the experience was like for them, the struggles that they had, and have them share their journeys with me. And I think in my community, a lot of people, like sometimes that gets overshadowed. People forget to share where they started. And when people, because a lot of them were like track athletes, and then they just came over to the sport and were seemingly automatically good, but that's not the case. And the more of those people that share that, like, I started from here and it took this much time to build up to this, the more people like me who don't have a background in athletics are willing to engage. And if you know that there's potential for failure or that things will be hard, then you're less likely, I think, to have an adverse reaction the first time you experience the challenge. So I definitely think that's true.
Okay. Thank you, Amber.
Something I've seen that helps, and even myself, to get that motivation for that first step is racing or some sort of event where you can go at any level. It's not that you're actually expecting to win, but you have an objective, a final date, a timeline to achieve something. So that's why I think it's absolutely nuts. But that's why so many people sign up for marathons. Mm-hmm. People that have never worked out, and then they're like, yes, in a year I'm doing a marathon. And so they know that for 1 year somehow they need to achieve some sort of physical condition so that they are able to manage to do the marathon. Now, I don't know the statistics of how well people actually perform at marathons. I think that's crazy. But maybe without making it such a big achievement like a whole marathon, for me, little races here in Central Park that they are just loops in a 5-10 kilometer track, that's super fun. It keeps me focused and it makes me want to sign up. And it's actually something that you do in person, unlike the Strava, because Strava also have races against the people online, but doing it with other people in real life, that's great. So that's another thing I consider.
Anna, are you talking about bike races in Central Park or the running?
No, the bike races, the clinics.
Ah, I used to do those.
Oh, nice. Wait, you live here in New York?
I used to live in the city. I now live in Westchester.
I was gonna say, also you can do a focus group and then you meet people and start biking together, but like that's not anymore. Too bad.
It seems like we'll end up like that. Okay.
Yes.
I would have to agree. I just wanted to kind of second what Amber was saying about seeing people that are considered elite in the sport that you're interested in, and hearing their stories of the failures, all the mistakes, you know, all the things that they've learned on their journey, and just having that humility, having that sharing, you know, so that, you know, we're probably going to make those same mistakes, but it just feels so good to see this person who's, you know, biking an average of 25 miles per hour. And they're like, no, I started on a steel frame mountain bike. You know, I completely changed between the swim and the bike. And, you know, I forgot to take off my helmet on the run, and, you know, all these things, seeing the humanity behind it all, and just the, you know, the mistakes, it really helps. And then when you get to transition to being the person that's providing those pieces of advice, it's so full circle. You know, I can say, like, I definitely did my first triathlon on a mountain bike with shoes that probably were not appropriate for running anymore, you know, all these things. And now it's like, I have the gear, I have a training plan, you know, I know how to achieve the goals that I want to do, but we all definitely started as kind of a hot mess, you know, and that's fine. And, you know, I like sharing my journey because, you know, we were all there, and I want people to know that that's fine. Like, you'll get there if you want to.
And for that, would you like to have a mentor to show you or to support you during your journey, to show you the steps? And
yeah, I mean, kind of, so like when I started my triathlon journey, it was a little bit of a mix between, I had two friends that I was training with, and because I'm type A and I love a plan, I had a training plan, and I kind of ran practices for my friends. And then we would go to these little, they had these like little workshops so that you could learn from the more elite ladies in this community. And that was really nice because they would run you through the little things that you don't necessarily think about, you know, how to put on the belt that holds your bib, or, you know, all the little things. So having people to kind of learn with you, and then people to learn from, kind of all at the same time. Yeah, super, super helpful.
Okay. And what about the others? Do you also think that you need this kind of mentor who would show you the technical support, or to be there for the technical support, but also for the emotional support, like to motivate you to be there when you want to cherish you when you need to?
Yeah, I think so. My running coach happens to live close to me, and she's an elite athlete in the field. And if it wasn't for her, I would never be racing elite now, because I've been able to kind of like walk alongside her and her friends and see everything. And I definitely would not be where I am now if I did not have that.
What about you, Anna?
Yes, like having a mentor. For me, that sort of mentor mindset is like my coach. I've had a coach my entire life for swimming, not for biking. But the thing about, if this is more of in a discovery mindset or in a trying something new mindset, the coach or mentor by itself wouldn't be enough if it doesn't come with more people at your level to like partner together. Because otherwise it just becomes like a regular coach at the gym that just like look for advice, but it doesn't encourage you to, you know, just try to reach the next stage. So I would say mentor and a team.
So for that, and it's a question to you all, what kind of criteria should we put to choose the best mentor for you?
I don't know, someone else. Yeah, you go, Daniela.
So as far as like what I would be looking for in a mentor in my sport, is that the question?
Yeah.
I would say somebody, obviously availability, like somebody that you have easy access to, that you don't feel like you would be inconveniencing them to ask questions, because I feel like people feel like that a lot. And then somebody who is transparent. So whether that's in person or on social media, somebody who is willing to share the good and the bad of their journey. I think that those are the two most important. Obviously you want them, like, also somebody to be willing to give you guidance and again, meet you where you are, like understand that you're working towards something and be relatable. But yeah, I think availability, relatability, and then I guess transparency is really important to me.
And as a woman, do you think it's much easier if the mentor would be a woman as well, or you don't think it's an important criteria to you?
I think, like in this case in sports, I do think that it would be important that it was a woman. Not to say, like, I have great male athlete friends, but because abilities are not going to be the same, journeys are not going to be the same, they don't have as similar bodies, and I think that in sport a woman is important. Yeah,
the mentor is part friend, part coach, right? And so you have to have the friend aspect. Easier to do with a woman, I think. Not impossible to do with a man, just easier to find those other connections with a mentor. Like, I think it would be, I love this idea of like a sports mentor. And actually the triathlon group that I started with, the woman who organized it reached out to all of like the OGs of the original team, and said, hey, who wants to mentor my new triathletes to try to, share your experience. I would love to be I love mentoring in any aspect. And I would love to mentor people in sport because it reminds me why I love it. It reminds me like my journey, like all of my hard-won knowledge. Like I want to pass that on to someone. And so like, I love the idea of a sports mentor.
And where would you go to find a mentor?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think like it's the just sort of happens. You find a friend who's better than you, who's done this stuff. Like it's a little just sort of luck, I think.
Okay. And what kind of you said that one of the criteria is to have the mentor who is accessible all the time, but on what basis of exchanges you would like them to be there? Like on a daily basis, or just every race, or
I don't know that that's super like concrete. I think like for me, accessibility more so in that like I feel comfortable reaching out to them. Like I said, like I don't feel like it's an inconvenience. Like my coach is my friend. She does live here. We have a friendship out. She was my coach first. Now she is my friend. So I talked to her more, but when she was my coach, just my coach, it was important like that, I could message her about workouts and she would respond. So I guess more so availability as far as like if I reach out, I can expect a response within say 24 hours. Just because as an athlete, you go through so many highs and lows. Like I had a really great workout this morning and I immediately texted a screenshot of my Garmin data to my coach. She responded right away, but I know that she has a life of her own workouts. And if she wouldn't have responded until like tomorrow or something, like that would have been fine too. But because I was really happy for myself, it was important that I could know that I could share that with her and then eventually she would respond. But I would say like 24, within 24 hours or so. For a mentor, for just a basic coach, I don't think you can always expect that. But if you're talking an actual mentor, then I think just response within 24 hours of you reaching out and maybe they reach out to you once a week. Like I also have a sports nutritionist and we meet on a weekly basis like a designated meeting. And she's also going to become my friend, but I can reach out to her via the app anytime I want, and I can expect she'll probably respond by the next day.
Okay. Then we were, that we were talking so far to, how do you access, how do you get involved into sports? But we also have noticed, talking a lot with women, that very often they compare their body with men's body, and many things in sports are meant to address, men's issues, but women, not that much. So we would like to know, we thought that maybe we could have somehow a sort of scan, a sort of a checkup that gives you some information about your body so that you can better understand your body. Okay, that's the starting point. And we'd like to know what kinds of thing you would be interested into, what would you like to know about your body?
Okay, so as a scientist, one thing that is incredibly frustrating, even in the world of animals, is that female animals are kept out of studies because they're complicated, because hormones complicate things. So a lot of times, even in mouse studies, they'll have all male animals in order to not complicate things. They will study female hormones in male animals. And it is so frustrating to me because I'm a wildlife endocrinologist. I study hormones for a living. Let me just tell you, hormones are complicated in every organism. Okay. So the fact that females are either excluded or they're basically modeled as like little men, is so frustrating. And then you move that to a human model and, you think about diet and performance and the fact that menstrual cycles are not even studied as part of a performance model. I mean, they're starting to, but it is absolutely bonkers to me that there's so little research out there, and it's this whole like systemic thing, like women aren't considered to be the, primary focus in sports or, whatever. And so it's not even studied. And then because we're not studied, the things that do get marketed to us are not effective because we're not.
Make a wish. What would you like to know?
Make a
Have
wish.
a magic wand today.
I try. So for myself, I try and accumulate as much data as possible. And I have noticed, for instance, hormones, period, all of that stuff, it interfaces pretty dramatically with my physical well-being, my performance. And I started tracking my menstrual cycle on the Garmin app, actually. And that's been really interesting because, they offer these like little tidbits of advice about, maybe have a more gentle workout today, or maybe incorporate more fiber today, or, all these other things. And I think that's a start. I like the fact that at least Garmin is acknowledging that this might impact your workouts in some meaningful way. But I think if I had my magic wand, I just a full shift to studying women in isolation without the men folk, putting their opinions in there. No offense. I just, not comparing relative to men or anything, just like start fresh. Here's a woman's body, here's the hormones and how they impact things. This is how we grow muscle. This is why muscle is so important as we age. This is how we lose bone mass. This is how we gain bone mass. This is what aerobic capacity looks like in a woman. All these things, I think we really need to have even just a baseline before you can start making any sort of, performance adjustments, because we just, sorry,
I'm going to change my questions. Otherwise, we'll be here in 3 hours. So we've made a list of things. We don't know how far they're relevant. What would you like to change on that list? What would you like to add? All of you.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
On the image, you've got criteria of things that you could learn about yourself. I don't know if you see them. on your phone.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
But the question is, what would you like? I mean, we've got, of course, the muscles mass, the fat measurement. Also, we've got, of course, cycles, menstrual cycles, potentially diets. We've got.
So the one thing that's missing for me is sleep recovery.
Yes.
And it's sort of, and Danielle's point about hormones is interesting. I hadn't even gotten down. I'm not an endocrinologist, so I've not gotten down to that level, but sort of rest and recovery and sort of how that impacts training. I used to use the Whoop app, and to me, that's like a recovery monitor, a lot of data. I think they just started tracking menstrual cycle information there too. But like, yeah, and what are to Danielle's point, like what's the best way for me as a woman to gain muscle, to gain fitness? Like, is there, because I'm sure that it's different in women than in men. So some more personalized information.
It is.
Or gender oriented information.
Absolutely. And where do you think it could happen? That scanning, that diagnostic somehow.
So I have, as far as like the height, weight, muscle mass, those things, I have a local place that I can go to in body analysis, and I've actually stopped doing them because the accuracy doesn't seem good. And it mostly makes me feel bad about myself. As somebody who used to be 100 pounds overweight, I realized that focusing on body fat and those type of things, especially in the running community, is pretty detrimental, especially as a person who's in a bigger body than most other athletes that I compete against. So I'm not really sure where. Maybe if you could go, like, I know the local university here, they can do like a DEXA scan or some of those testing things. But like some type of a clinic or a university that could focus more on those diet and cycle recovery, those type of things that you could get tests like that. People like easy and accessible. So, of course, I've done like Inside Tracker and those type of things to test my hormone levels and stuff. But I don't know if that answers the question, but maybe like university or a local clinic for that type of testing. Any
other ideas for the others?
I in my personalized program, I would definitely include like part of the tracking would be my menstrual cycle.
Yes.
But then I think that something that would be awesome that I am yet to find like an app or a wearable for it is something that brings all together, so that in the long term, like what I was telling you about my journal, that if you go 1 year behind and you analyze it in the long term, you can see how that had a direct impact with sports.
Okay.
If you could track all of these hormones and biological stuff with sports in the long term, that would be great.
Okay, keeping the history and being able to show you the evolution, the connections.
And what about if we think about a machine or something that analyze your body and that would also propose you personalized equipment linked to your body, to your style, to your practice, would that be interesting to you?
Yeah, I think so. And I love data, so anything that's easily and accessible, like I'll check it out. Yeah.
Okay, and why would you think that is interesting?
I don't know, just because, like I said, being able to know anything more about myself. Like I just got an Aura ring recently, and like every day I'm checking the app to see more about recovery. So for me personally, I don't really care what type of information is. If it's something that's new that I think could increase my performance somehow, I am interested in looking at it. And yeah.
I'm not sure what it means. Is it like how there's women's size frames for bikes, or what do you mean?
Let's say, for example, as we have here some examples like a bra who's really linked to your size, leggings, for example, top, shoes. And also for a bike, if you also need some personalized accessories or something else that you think it's important to you because it's a part of your style, your personality, your practice, or just of your body as it is. Otherwise, we can also think about that you would put the ingredients that you need to. Here we have the example of a shampoo, personalized shampoo, where you need to put your the type of your hair, your needs, your goals, your objectives. So if we think about sports and performance, if you need to put your objectives of the session or in 1 month, and you need to put the ingredients that you need to have the perfect equipment that may match your goals. Would that also be interesting or no?
You know, for me, oh, sorry, go ahead, Anna.
Just gonna say that that's a great example of that shampoo that's customized. That would be more appealing than the previous suggestions, because I think the market is overstocked with supposed customized gear. But then if you actually get to select certain things that apply to your lifestyle and you actually get something out of that, that sounds more authentic.
Okay. Danielle, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, I am, you know, I really enjoy doing research and trying to find the things that work best for me. And if that's something that is, you know, women's specific or women's sports specific, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. You know, it's something that I go out and I try and do my own research to find the things that work best for me. So like, for instance, the bike that I have is a women's specific frame. And it's because I'm short. And so the geometry just works a lot better. But, you know, I know that a lot of women either get really frustrated by having what's called a women's specific frame, or there's a lot of like pinkifying things that really frustrates women. And, you know, I think the pandering to women rather than just designing directly and saying like, this is the best thing. It doesn't have to be pink. You know, it's just a thing that works really well. You know, I think finding that balance is really helpful, because I don't want, you know, you've made these leggings for me that are supposedly, you know, performance or whatever. It's like, I just want to feel comfortable in them. I want to, you know, I don't want them to be stinky. I want them, you know, I have all these other things that aren't related to me as a woman. It's just me as Danielle. And I just want, you know, comfortable clothes to hang out in and a bike that works for me. And, you know, so I do my own research on that and kind of build, you know, my own little kit of things that work best.
Yeah. So if I get this right, as long as, sorry, I don't know who was talking, just to make sure, as long as it fits you, it doesn't have to be women specific, as long as, okay.
As long as it matches your criteria. And if we
Yeah.
keep going, if it's based on your, you know, biological criteria, what if we have a capacity to go along with you and give you maybe some advices about, you know, sleeping, about what you eat, about hydration, and asking you how do you feel and connect about what you experience and how you emotionally deal with it, so that you can you know, follow in terms of efforts, diet, sleeps, and see the connections, but based on who you are. Okay.
I think that's great. I actually have a sports nutritionist who does all of those things. She asked me about my biomarkers, stress, sleep, hunger. We check in on that every single week. And then we get to have a conversation on why is this looking like this? And that's been really life-changing for me to consider all those aspects of life. And I would rather have something like that than saying this shoe or this shirt might work for you, because I don't think my body is similar to a lot of women. So personalized biomarker insight is a lot more important to me as an athlete than apparel and equipment. I can look all over, and I've tried things that people say will work great for me and then they don't. So but those other biomarker insights, that's worth a lot more to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like to have someone who can take all those factors like stress, diet, I think understanding that like your diet is fuel for your performance and sort of how that factors in with your stress and your sleep and all of it to maximize peak performance is so much more valuable than like having a good sports bra. Although I will say on the biking equipment, like, yes, can we please get bikes that are built to women's geometry? And like, I'm tired of riding. I mean, I've got a good bike fitter, so like I've adjusted my men's bike and it's great, but it's really disappointing that like so many, and I think in the time of cost, like I think Specialized used to have a lot of really good women's equipment, and like through cost cutting, like they don't anymore, and it's just like the men's version. It's all unisex now, which is
I do exclusively Cannondale because of that, and they do really good. Like they actually pay attention to the women geometry. I don't know if you have tried Cannondale. Yes, Cannondale is great for that. One thing that might not be entirely related to the specifics that you're asking, but I'm also a designer and I'm thinking of the UX UI and the problem with for this information to be valuable to me, it has to be exhaustive and it has to actually offer some scientific level of data and visuals for me to believe it. And in order to have enough data to deliver, to have put into an algorithm that delivers true insights, you have to collect all of it, right? So you have to collect my levels of hydration, all the bio things that Amber was saying. And the problem with that is that I'm going to be on my phone hours inputting data, and I'm just not going to do that because I already input that on my Apple Watch and on my Fitbit and on my sleep cycle app and on Strava. So I think that's and then my menstrual cycle. So
yes,
I think that
if it's connected, if it is linked, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. My nutritionist.
If you're already collecting the data that you have.
Yeah, I mean, if someone just said, if you didn't have to do anything, okay, then you grant my wish. I'm just saying, how realistic is it that I don't have to do anything? Just something to keep in mind.
Let's suppose, in terms of in reality, that we find a way to collect the data that you already have on your phone, on your on your watch bracelet, and your everything. If we manage to connect it and use that data.
No, then it's perfect. I'm just saying that some of the things that we're talking about, say the menstrual and hormone tracking, I don't have a tracker for that, so that's additional data.
Yes.
And then the other one, it's in multiple apps because every time you get a new app. So just something to take into consideration.
What we hear is that it has to be simple for you, and the less information you have to feed, the better. However, if we want to collect new pieces of information, because so far it's based on a men's model, we have to go and get those information. So the first diagnostic is one way to get it, but then we need to keep updating it on the go. Otherwise, it's useless. But yeah, we agree.
I personally am willing to, if I'm wanting to increase my performance, I'm pretty much willing to do whatever is needed. So I will track my meals or my hydration and those things just because it's so important to me. Maybe not like long-term, but short-term, I would do it. But like I said, most of my apps that my nutritionist uses, she can see my FitnessPal, she can see my Strava, my Garmin, everything. And so she goes and takes all of that and looks at it. So it's not too much work for me. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lexi.
I think to Anna's point, right now, there's a lot of data out there, and there are a lot of different apps that track different things, but there's no like one consolidated thing. So Samuel, like if you have a way to consolidate, because there's this thing called Vessel Health. I don't know if anyone's heard of this, where you like pee on cards every once in a while and it transmits information to your phone that gives like more, I don't even know what type of data, but it's like another thing. And there's like the Whoop app, and like, there are a lot of different sources of data, but it's disparate right now. And so to be able to somehow consolidate that, and if you can do it in the background, so you're only entering the data once, that would be huge.
Can I also add, like, I think this is all, like, this would be amazing, like if it all came in, but I do think it's really important to have a human aspect to it, so that it isn't just algorithm based or AI based, that sort of thing. There needs to be a human, like Amber's, like a nutritionist or something involved, so that you get a kind of boots on the ground sort of look at things, in a way for the user to maybe reflect and say, you offer this recommendation, and that's not real to me or my body, and have it tweaked, and maybe have a way to interface with a human at some point to kind of tweak whatever the app's suggesting or whatnot. Because my husband's a software engineer. I know that humans, do all that programming and everything, but there definitely needs to just be kind of a real like truth check on the recommendations and how data is being integrated and that sort of thing.
Okay. Now, remember we started by discussing about performance. When it comes to monitoring, and we've talked about the body, but what would you like somehow to monitor? If you'd like to compare what you do compared to your objectives, which objectives are the most important ones? We've made up a list about perseverance, progress, the ability to vary, feeling good in my body, feeling good in my head, transmissions to others, pleasure and fun. You started, some of you, Anna was very much into the data and the need to compare about, with ourselves. Lexi, you talked a lot about the feelings, towards the objectives, the motivations connected with, how I feel directly, things like that. So at the end, of course, we can monitor time and distance, but is it, what is the most important thing for you? Would you like to change that? What would you like to monitor? And Clémence is putting back here some notes that she took when you were talking about performance, about your mental health data, your body states, your perception about doing well, how you're feeling, going back to memories and see how you evolve, how do you respect your body, all the changes during your life, the womanness that you can feel. So here, still a magic wand. Okay, we can do anything we want, since nothing exists. Okay, what would you like to monitor, and and what would you like to track, basically, towards what kind of objectives?
I think how my body feels, like my biomarkers, my energy, my happiness, mood, in connection to my performance output. So if I can look at a workout and see that, I had this workout today, and then I had it 6 months from now, how did I feel today when I did the workout? What were my outcomes? And then 6 months from now, how am I feeling and what were my outcomes? So that's something, like, that's one of the reasons I got a nutritionist, because that's what I want to see. I want to know, when is my body working best, and how can I recognize that it's working that way?
So Amber, if I rephrase it, it's you still have the result data in terms of distance and time, basically, but based on that, that's to get to learn about more about your body and how you feel.
Yes.
Okay. What about the others? What would you like to track? What would you like to, to check?
For me, it's interesting this is all here because I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that would be really good to track. And it's interesting because some of the existing apps that I have ask these questions. So Garmin and Strava, I think both, they have like a little notes area where you could say, how did I feel after this? Or there's one of the Trainer Road, after a workout, they automatically pop up like, how did this workout feel? And, you get like 5 choices or something like that. And, to be completely honest, I don't really use them very much. And it's something that I probably should, it probably would help me, but at least as easy as they make it, I don't actually use it. It's very rare that I put a note in unless there's something just absolutely, like I ended up stopping and puking on the side of the road or something. I mean, like something really dramatic. But
maybe it is because nothing happens if you feel those notes. I mean, there's a difference between,
that's true.
feeling a comment and tracking something.
Yeah, no, that is true. And having graphs and whatnot, having just immediate visual representation of data is very appealing to me. I really like that a lot. And so if there was something that was a question that was asked that was then made into a visual representation, that is really helpful. So at this point, I don't know exactly what the tracking would be, but I like these graphs, these little fake drawings that you have.
Again, I'm going to plug the Whoop app again. I mean, I think that a lot of this stuff is collected. They've got great graphs. And then in their online community, I think they do further analysis beyond. I never went that far because I'm not a big data person. But I did really enjoy looking at the graphs, and they were colored and they were just very visually appealing. I didn't always feel like they related to how I was actually feeling. So I felt like that information was like, my body metrics were saying, oh, like you feel great today. I'm like, no, I don't. But I think they had a whole lot more analysis, and they had, that they had the mental health check-in, like they had a lot of different check-ins. And I think you can customize it. A customizability, I think, is very key. What am I interested in tracking? Like a lot, like Fitbit. I know you can customize that as well. But
let's see, what would be the most helpful information for you?
Sleep, although I'm not supposed to be tracking my sleep right now. My doctor told me not to, because as a person who is sleep challenged, she said the worst thing you can do is track your sleep. But yeah, like energy level, I think energy level, like my own perception of my energy level relative to sort of what my like resting heart rate and sort of that relativity, I think would be interesting.
Okay. Anna?
I sort of wrote them on the chat, but I like from an emotional perspective, energy levels of how I'm feeling, and then I would like to have actual biological log. If you're already collecting all of these data from me, might as well give me actual trackers of health in case I have to visit the doctor for whatever reason.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a question to wrap up this scenario. If we imagine that we are participating in a competition, and you're one of the jury, and you are asked to invent new indicators specific to women, what would be these indicators?
Indicators of what?
Of the competition, who would win the competition, for example, or how to track your performance during the competition. Because now you said the energy level, how you feel, do you think this is also need to take into consideration when you have a performance during a race or competition?
I think I have oh, sorry, Anna, go ahead.
I was just going to say that when I'm training and like, sorry, Samuel, this is like period stuff. But on the second and third day, I get really bad cramps, and I still work out. I usually take a nut pill or something and go for a workout, but I can tell the immediate impact it has on my training. And I've literally never ever heard of anyone taking that into consideration as a tracking. I don't know what I would call it, like a period cramp index or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about women and really connecting the menstrual cycle aspect of it would be important to me.
So I actually have a really big important race on Sunday, and I'm going to start my cycle any day now. And I also have terrible cramps usually on the second day. And I'm due to start about 2 days before the race. So I think that would be interesting as well, because I do get really, really bad cramps, but sometimes I almost think that I run harder to try to escape. Like, I feel like I can control that pain. And like today I had probably one of the best run workouts I've had in a really long time, like multiple splits in the, 5:40 pace. And there are some studies like the book Roar, Women Are Not Small Men, where they talk about actually during the week of your period, your hormone levels are supposed to be high and you should be able to perform. But like you said, sometimes the cramps, it's hard. I have raced with terrible cramps and it was a horrid experience. So I think that that'd be very interesting to know, like, if somebody does have, obviously it's hard to get a group of people that are going to have cramps the same day, but I think it'd be interesting to know, like this week and going into my race on Sunday, I know many of those women don't have cycles because they have IUDs and take other birth controls, but it would be interesting to know who does have a typical cycle, at what point in their cycle are they during this performance, and relative to other performances, what was the outcome? I did almost the same exact course in October, and I was in a completely different place in my cycle. So I am interested to see what the difference between those two performances. Of course, there's a lot of other life things that can impact, but yeah, I think that.
I also love that Amber mentioned birth control, because that also has a very high hormonal impact. So it's not just the cycle, but also some birth control stop the cycle entirely, and some don't, and some just change their hormones and so on. So taking birth control into consideration would be super interesting too. And pregnancy, I think you already were taking that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well noted.
So now we will talk about the logistic aspects of the practice. So for scenario tomorrow, to manage my professional, sporting, and family life, which is full sometimes, we identify conflicts in my schedule and always offer me an alternative to have time to train. So for example, it could be ask a network of neighbors to watch my children, or optimizing my session by, for example, intensifying it, or many alternatives to always find solutions to practice. Is it interesting to have an intelligent planner?
So is the question, is there some sort of integrated scheduler to help us find more time to train?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, we've noticed that many women, more than men actually, struggle to make some space, some room for their sport practice in their lives, because often they struggle with family lives when they have a family, with professional lives. And so the idea here is, if we come out with a tool, the tools exist, but if we use the existing tools to make sure that you communicate, for example, in the family, it's basically replacing what you used to put on your fridge, the old planning, saying, today, Mom, or I am, away, don't even think to bother me, I'll be on my bike. Okay, and if things change, it's often the woman who pays the price of this planning changes. So here the idea is to help, everyone in the family. It's basically to help women protect the time slots dedicated for sports. And if an issue happens, it's to help them find a solution, in their network, in their surroundings, maybe with neighbors, maybe with other, sports women around, maybe create a community to help each others. But that would be the idea.
If you have an app that can do that, then you really do have a magic wand.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
I mean, the thing that resonates with me the most, the thing that sounds the most realistic is to optimize the session. So say if I plan to work out for an hour, but now I only find myself with half an hour. Okay, what can I do in this half an hour to get the most benefit out of the 30 minutes that I've been able to carve out? Like knowing what my goals are, knowing where I'm feeling today, like, or maybe like the opposite, like you're not, you got a lot of stress, like it would actually be better for you to skip this workout today and do something tomorrow. That would be the most useful.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. Like the integrating like your schedule, your time to your feeling and having all of that, like just go for a walk instead, take a break, go breathe, go take a walk. And that's really cool because I mean, even I don't have kids. I'm, my husband and I are double income, no kids, and I still struggle to fit in the blocks of training that I want to do. And, you like beyond just not having the time, you also struggle with, I mean, I'm saying I struggle with feelings of guilt and, not, so maybe offer some therapy sessions in there as well, so that I can, optimize my, myself. Like I need to prioritize myself right now. Danielle, prioritize yourself today. But no, I mean, it is kind of an interesting idea. And if there was a way to actually make this work, that is kind of magical.
And how is it? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that I don't have children either, or a spouse, but I think the optimizing time is important. I actually just listened to a podcast from somebody in my racing community talking about that the other day. Some coaches talking about that's one of the biggest problems with athletes, especially women, saying that they don't have time. And so they were talking about like for their specific plans, like how ideas of how to cut down to still get the work in, like to figure out what the most important is instead of ditching the entire workout, because then people have guilt for skipping the whole thing. So I think something like that is great. Or like a neighborhood meet group, like a Tinder for women with kids who can like hop on the app and be like, and find other people like, hey, run at this time. Us two moms can go now. You guys take the kids. And then the other two moms go this time. Like people have that for pets. They do like pet swap and stuff. So it'd be hard to get something like that widely known. But I think like running moms always, or other sports, they need childcare and they don't want to feel guilt. And sometimes having to pay for it with actual money is not an option. So.
Okay.
I would add something that we haven't talked at all. I think it's like geolocation and weather, because maybe you have the time, you have the energy, you have everything, you're not on your period, but the weather is gnarly on the outside. So what do you do? So yeah, the geolocation for in case you're going to meet with other people, and the weather to be taken into account too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great point on the weather, because like my schedule, like Sunday morning is my like carved out time for my long bike rides. And if the weather is not good on Sunday morning, that's screwed. And that's been it's a real challenge. It's not so bad in the summer, but like in the fall and the spring. So for outdoor training, especially cycling, having a weather component on this magical scheduler app would be amazing.
Well, we won't be able to change the weather, okay? I mean, we have a
No,
magic
but
wand, but we
it's
have
gonna rain
limits.
tomorrow, so try to ride Saturday afternoon if you can, like, you know,
Yeah.
shift things around.
Exactly. It's like, oh, we know that the day that you usually work out, it's gonna be awful. So how about you skip this work period, change it for awful weather Saturday, and then work out right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
optimizer.
Yes, next story. So tomorrow you have access to animated areas. They are referenced, and you are sure that it is safety. There is light. There is others runners, others bikers. There is no traffic, etc.
This is important because when we talk to women, we know that security is a mental load to women, like where to run, when to run, also if it's at night or if it's in the morning, and where. So do you think it's important to have this kind of information? And what kind of information do you need when you have that?
I would say that more the opposite than what you had. Like, it's interesting to have the information around, like, no traffic, there are other people in the area, but it's more like, there are a couple of things that have this already. I don't know if Garmin has it, but like allow someone else to track you while you're out. And so some person back at home can just keep tabs on you, or, you know, if you have an app and there's a button, like if you need help, you can just press that button and whoever's monitoring you will get the alert, like I've fallen, you know, whatever. So it's more.
How can we make it different from what is existing today on the market? What kind of information that you're still missing about your safety and your security when you go for a run or for a bike?
We had the feeling that it worked the other way around. Basically, you don't want to go out and find yourself alone, even if someone can track you, or, you know, if you can alert someone. We had the feeling from what we observed is that you're looking for zones, basically, where you're going to be sure that you'll have other riders, other runners. You'll have light, even if it's winter, even if it's night. But you want to make sure that you won't feel alone, and you'll be with other women, and that will create somehow a safe zone.
I really like that, because I live in Idaho and I run on trails. I don't do road running. I don't run at night. Typically, if I do, I run near my house, but there are times that I am traveling, like my boyfriend's in the military, I will go meet him somewhere if he's like traveling, and I still run, and I don't know anything about that area. Like, I've been in Panama City, Florida, there wasn't any trails, and I had no idea, just like go run and hope that I don't run through a bad area. Same with like Spokane, Washington. I went there a few weeks ago. So something like that would be really comforting, because like you can Google and ask on Facebook groups, but if I knew like this route right here is like considered a safe zone, there's only so many stoplights, like you have, you know, you can run 3 miles without having to stop or whatever. I would find that really useful, because in my everyday life, that's not something that I would use, but when traveling, it's something I would definitely use.
There's a website called apartments.com, and it's for when you're looking to move into a different house or apartment or whatever, and they include a bunch of statistics. One of the indexes is like biking index, and it means like if they have biking lanes and so on, and they already did the research on what, like, how bikeable a city is. I think 75 up it's very bikeable, 50 down it's not really bikeable, and so on. So I would literally just go into that website, because it acknowledges for like walkability, public transportation, things like that could have an impact on it. And I would make it more an index, like a safety index of the area, rather than giving me each of the stats one by one, because I don't want to read all of that. I just want to know if it's safe or not.
Okay. Danielle?
Yeah, I really like this idea a lot. And I think it would be helpful to also, be able to interface it interface with it a bit, because so I supposedly live in a really bike friendly town, but there's areas that even though there's a bike lane or you are supposedly safe, it's not. I mean, just, people get killed on their bikes in this town a lot. And, being able to interface and maybe offer corrections, or, saying like, yeah, there's a bike lane here, but it's super narrow, or it's a place where, people are constantly taking you out on the, right on red situation, which is really popular here. So being able to, as a user, offer feedback or corrections would be helpful, just stuff on the ground, in the moment, saying, oh, well, it was supposed to be illuminated, but, they haven't replaced the light bulbs here in, a year, or, whatever like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I see that we are running out of time, but you still have just 5 minutes to finish the last scenario about this frame, and then we can talk about organizing another session. We will see about it. Do you all have 5 minutes more? Okay, perfect. Okay, the next one, you can go ahead, Clemence.
Yes, it's about technical outline or technical support. When you have an accident or technical accident or physical accident. So tomorrow it's automatic. Support came through and fix your bike, or brings you
the support that you need, the help that you need.
Yes. So what can help you to be more assured, or I don't know, what can help you?
So you're saying what can help if we were to need, like if our bike, if like we got a flat tire or our bike was broken or something, was that the?
There's both the mechanical aspect, if something happens to your bike, as well as the health dimension, if you're injured or something like that. In both cases, we could, it could trigger an assistance, and you could have someone who would come and help you.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I think like for me, I would first rather have like a tutorial video to try to help myself. I have gotten a flat tire and been stranded though, and not had somebody to come pick me up. But I would rather first like just have the tools, know what I need for different help. Like I would be a lot less likely. I mean, I don't ride that far from home, me personally, but I would be less likely to like want some random person to come help me. I would just call like family or friends. If I really had to, I'd call like, I don't know, an Uber truck for like to take me and my bike home. But
what if it was like runners community, or like sporty people as you, not just some random people?
Yeah, that would. I think that would be great. Like if I knew somebody else who's also a runner, like if I was out on a trail and I hurt my ankle, and there's like other runners nearby that could help, or other bikers nearby. Like I'm not quite a cyclist. I just do it as extracurricular for cross training. But yeah, something like that I think would be really cool if you could say like, hey, I'm at this intersection. I got a flat. Anybody available to help? Like have a spare tube or whatever. That would be awesome. Yeah.
That's the idea. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky though, because, a lot of the places, at least around here that I bike and run, there's no cell service or anything. So, it's a double-edged sword, because you want to go out and go into these really fun places, but you actually lose connection, to your family and friends. And I mean, really at that point, I mean, you're kind of SOL, because you have no connection to the cell service or internet.
Mm.
And that's definitely a concern. I mean, almost all of the wild places here in Arizona, your cell service kind of goes to crap.
Actually, if you can see the picture on the left, we also imagined what if it was from your equipment where the sign done. I mean, not with your cell phone. If you don't have connection, as you said, then your equipment, your I don't know, your bike or your your brow would yeah,
Like it's satellite
Yeah.
connected or something.
yeah,
Yes.
signal to,
Okay.
to the
That would be cool. I know. So I have a Garmin Edge bike computer, and there's a, like, if I get into a crash, I think it's satellite connected. It sends a beacon to my husband to tell him, like, your wife is flattened somewhere on a trail. But yeah, I mean, if there was a satellite component, that could be kind of cool. Although, you know, if it's something that you'd have to pay for or opt in, I think that's something that people would be less likely to engage with. If it's one whole, you know, another thing that you have to pay for, even if it's for your safety, it's kind of wild. They're like, I don't want to pay for that.
yeah.
Lexi?
I'm similar to Amber. Like, I would call a friend, you know, and this is why I prefer to cycle with people than on my own, because, you know, if you do have a problem, you've got someone there. So, I mean, I think, you know, the biking community is usually pretty good. If I've ever had a mechanical issue and I'm stopped on the side of the road and another cyclist happens to go by, like they'll off, you know, are you okay? Do you need anything? But I mean, I think I think the most useful thing for something like this is if you're by yourself and you are injured in a way that you cannot communicate yourself, that would be valuable. But I don't know how often that happens. Yeah, like Danielle said, do you have to pay? Is that an additional service that you have to pay for?
Yeah.
So.
What about you, Anna? We didn't hear you about this.
It's not that I think that either are bad ideas, but I just have a mind where we've gone through so many scenarios that I think it's too much. I kind of all the things that we've seen, I would prioritize either the mentor thing or the bio trackers or the whatever. I think this was already too much on my.
Yeah.
It's almost like 5 different apps.
Maybe we can do a vote on the scenario that we saw.
Yeah, we will just take 1 minute to present you a wrap up of what we presented to you today, by keeping in mind that we didn't finish all the frames, something that we will discuss by the end of the session. Okay.
Take times to see scenarios that we saw,
and then you can put on the chat your preferred scenarios with a number.
Yes,
and say
on your own.
Yeah, on your own. Yeah. So this is more of personal moment to yourself to think about the experiences that you liked the most.
Sorry, do you want us to chat as privately or to the whole group on which scenario?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Yes.
You can write it down on the chat or yeah. Thank you, Anna.
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. Is 2.3, is that the one where we were talking about being able to say, like, I felt like this and have this performance, and to track that? Yes. Like, is that example?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you explain a bit your choice?
For me, the most important, like, insightful thing of all the things that we discussed is that if we're really trying to create something female oriented, to have all of that biological and tracking connected with literally female menstrual and hormonal things, that would be unique, and I've never experienced that before, so I think it doesn't exist. And then 3.1 could add to it without feeling like a completely separate app. And particularly I like when we talked about the geolocation and weather prediction, because then it actually becomes super useful. But it's also, as I think Lexi said, like my third choice.
Okay, thank you.
Amber, you still didn't put your preferences, or you want to do it?
I was accidentally private messaging Danielle. I'll put him in just a second. I 2.3 and 2.2. I really like the idea of 2.3. That's just I think that is, I'm such a performance, I guess, based athletes, and I don't have as many worries about some of the other things like safety and stuff. So something like that would be something that I would be willing to engage with, because at this point, I guess my performance is everything.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies, for this insightful session. We really enjoyed it, actually, even though we had some technical problems at the beginning. And we would like to see, since we didn't have the time to go through all the frames, we would like to see with you if you would be eventually available for another hour to plan another session of 1 hour. Of course, you will also be paid for it, to go through everything more in details, and to continue this session together. So I see Lexi is okay. Danielle, okay.
Yes, I'm good.
Anna also, and Amber, perfect. Then I will send you an email with proposed dates, and you can tell me about your availabilities. In the meantime, you can send me already what I asked you to send me, so we can proceed with that. And yeah, thank you again for being here today for you.
Today, this morning.
Would it be possible? Would it be possible or acceptable, like if the other girls in this group want to like connect outside of this? I just feel like we have a lot in common. I don't want to like muddy your guys' waters.
Yeah. How do you think we make that community grow? We do some focus groups to pretend that we're trying to learn something about, about sport, but the whole point is about, helping you connect with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also a PhD student who's about to start my dissertation, so I'm very fascinated with, I like all the research stuff. I'm a social psychology PhD student, so honestly, all of this is like my jam.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So thank you. I'm so sorry I was late. I was having a lot of difficulties, and then
that's okay. Okay, then we will stay in touch soon. Probably tomorrow I will send you proposition of the dates, and then we will based on that we will manage another session.
Righty. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.